What's going on, Wiz Nation? Coming back at you guys with another episode of State of the Wizards. I'm your host, Dcan, along with my co-host, Kjose, and we are the voices of the unheard. This is episode 37. Kjose, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. How you feeling this evening?
Feeling good, man. How's everything? How was your weekend?
Weekend was pretty good. Sonny Boy had his prom yesterday, so that was a big event, and got to get prepared for his high school graduation next month. So that's going to be even more of a big event.
Boy was looking
But
sharp.
besides that, man, positive vibes, brother.
Boy was looking sharp, man, for real.
Get to the T, man. Looking way sharp. I mean, he was the only one that would be able to wear that. I wouldn't have been able to look as sharp as he was looking in that. So,
man, I hear that. So tonight we're gonna discuss some things with the Wizards, and it's the season's end, man. We're gonna
thank God.
yeah, I know. We're gonna discuss what the Wizards off season looks like. Wizards overall grade to the season. Rui's game one performance today, and who we like the Wizards to draft this summer. Coming up next on State of the Wizards. So before we get started, if this is your first time tuning into the channel, thank you. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also now available to you, our State of the Wizards store. Please visit our official site at stateofthewizards.myshopify.com. Shop all your favorite items from personalized hashtag hats, jackets, coffee mugs, and more. Shop State of the Wizards today, where your voice matters every day. Follow me at Wizards Mafia and follow my main man, Kjose, at DC Hoopla on Twitter. Also follow us at State of the Wizards on Instagram and State of the Wizards on Twitter. All right, so Kjose, let's get started. First question I got for you, man. Kjose, the Wizards finish the season 35-47 for the second year in a row. What grade do you give this season? Where did they go wrong? And what does their offseason look like with the folks who they now call in the mid-3? What does it look like for the Wizards?
Well, for one, I'm not going to give the grade an incomplete like the GM did, but I would say it was a failing grade with the expectations they had. They didn't meet those expectations. They actually underachieved. But then again, when we talked about it during the offseason and when we talked about it at the beginning of the season, we never had expectations for this team to be a playoff team. We both believed that this team was going to win under 40 games, which they did. So I would actually give them a failing grade. The expectations for this off season, from what it all sounds like, that the idea is that they're going to re-sign Kuz and they're trying to re-sign KP. I don't know how they're going to stay under the luxury tax by doing that, but that's what Tommy Shepard is saying, because he said that, okay, the sample size for these three guys, because they went 16 and 19, is not enough. He needs to see more of it. But it's enough for you to go ahead and back up the Brinks truck for both of these two players. Make it make sense. Who we're going to draft, I don't know, to be honest with you. I would like for us to, if we're in the top 3, I would like for us to either get Scoot, I like Brandon Miller, and I like one of the Thompson twins. I like both of the Thompson twins, to be honest with you. So I think that would be ideal. Now, if we land somewhere 7 or 8, it's kind of a crapshoot. There's a lot of players that have some strengths and there's a lot of players that have some weaknesses. And knowing with this organization, they're going to do nothing but draft another player just to be a role player.
Right.
Because that's what they've been doing anyway these last several years, is drafting role players. That's how they're trying to build up the 4 through 10. I've also said that I don't believe this franchise values the draft as much because they know they can go ahead and find undrafted players, send them to the go-go. They're cheaper than drafting a first rounder.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, if you decide to cut loose of that particular player, you're not really spending a lot of money cutting that player loose. Versus, let's say, Denny, for example, the Wizards would never cut Denny. They would just try to trade him. And after what they did with Rui, I think they'll just be willing to trade their own pick just for whatever.
Yeah. So where do you think it went wrong this season?
Where I think it went wrong, believing in the mid three. That's where it went wrong. Believing that they could actually take the league by storm. You know, you're relying on three guys who have a durability problem. Now, I would say that Kuzma is more durable than KP and Bankroll.
Mm-hmm.
Putting all your chips in there, and then also telling Rui that he's going to be a six man and thinking he was going to be okay with that.
Yeah.
They went wrong with that. You traded Rui away for a ham sandwich and a bag of chips, and you had a couple of games where Kendrick Nunn looked like he had something, but then he started to show you why he's bounced around the league a lot.
Yeah.
So
Kendrick Nunn thought he could come here and basically just take a back seat and not do a damn thing, basically.
yeah,
I
he
mean,
had none left.
I mean, Kendrick Nunn,
I mean,
he really, his last name is Nunn, and that's exactly what he gave us. None.
he gave us none. And then, you know, for a lot of people who were upset that we gave up on Chris Dunn, who's playing for Utah, who's been very productive of him. And with the Utah, he could have been a point guard, but you know, this is just another blunder about his organization. They constantly keep making mistakes, but because they're all committed into the $251 million player, they're going to do whatever they can just to keep going in that direction. And I don't expect them to do much of anything next season. I expect us to be mediocre again. If you sign KP, if you sign Kuz, you already got bankroll tied up. How in the world do you expect this team to really go out there and just be world beaters? They're not going to be world beaters.
It'll end up being that you sign three guys to over 60% of the cap.
Exactly.
Without these guys having to prove, you know, that they're winners. This season's a loss. You know, Tommy Shepard said in his exit interview that, you know, this was an incomplete season, which you and I don't agree with. You know, just give the season a grade. You know, I think Chris Miller went on Locked On Wizards and said that he just call it what it is. It was an F. You know, and you know, when you don't make the playoffs, that's what you have to give the season, regardless of what happened. You have to give the season an F, not an incomplete. You know, incomplete is basically just copping out the entire team. Everyone gets a pass, you know,
exactly.
And that's just not the case on this type of team. You had a lot of players that were underachieving. You had some guys that did step up, but they didn't step up until later. You had some guys that only stepped up in the first half of the season, but then disappeared in the second half of the season. You know, so saying that it was incomplete, that's clearly just letting yourself off the hook. But let's put it this way. Porzingis definitely earns an extension. You know, but he only gets the extension for the direction, you know, because they believe in this build around Bill experiment. Kuzma only gets an extension because of the same reason.
Exactly.
And so, you know, and it kind of does them a disservice because, you know, these guys are better than just being the guys that are alongside the 251. You see what I'm saying? It's like, well, we're only keeping you here because we believe you can keep the thing afloat with 251. But if 251's gone, that means you're gone too. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And that's not really fair to them because if you ask me, if Bill asked out tomorrow, I would still want to build around KP. You see what I'm saying? I wouldn't have a problem with saying, okay, well, if you're going to tear everything down because, you know, Bankroll decides to leave, fine. But keep KP. I don't have a problem with that. Build around Porzingis. You can get rid of Kuz, whatever. But we already know that they don't look at one guy outside of Bradley Beal as even more special. You know, they don't see them that way. They look at it like they're a package. You know, they're a package deal. Which brings me to my next point. You know, last season, Tommy Shepard said that we weren't drafting a point guard. So they went out and they acquired Monte Morris. They got DeLon Wright. and these guys are on the contract for one more year. Here's my question now: because they didn't ultimately achieve what Tommy Shepard said that he envisioned for this team this season with the core guys.
Mm-hmm.
But then he goes into his
Mm-hmm.
exit interview and says that he's expecting to see some changes. Well, what kind of changes? Because you pretty much have your 1 through 6. You got your 1 through 6 set. You see what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? You got your 1, you got your 2, you got your 3. You probably still need another wing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but Delon and Monte are still under contract for next season. Unless you move those guys, what other changes are we looking at this point? Kisper's going to come back. Denny's going to be back. So what other changes are we talking about?
When it comes down to Denny, I'm not too sure, man. I don't know if his job is safe like that.
So you think they're
Looking
gonna
at
move him? You think they're gonna move him this season? This off season?
he I don't know if they're gonna move him this offseason, but what I will say this is I don't feel confident that he will finish the 2023-2024 season as a Wizard. You got to look at what happened with Rui, man. You got to look at what happened to him. I think that it's now or never for Denny. He
Mm-hmm,
has to step it up, and he got to come out next season running. He can't be inconsistent.
mm-hmm.
If he's inconsistent, I do not see him being a Wizard past next season. When it comes down to the point guard position, depending on what this franchise does this offseason, let me put it this way: we're not going to find a point guard in free agency. If you sign KP, if you sign Kuzma to these big time contracts, you're not going to have money to go out there and get yourself a veteran point guard. Now,
Right. Mm-hmm,
Van Fleet is possibly going to be on the market. The Raptors are talking about doing significant changes as well. When we talk about them doing significant changes, it means a lot different compared to our significant changes.
mm-hmm.
But let's just say Van Fleet, if the Raptors decide, hey, they're not going to keep him, and they decide they're going to go the youth route, we're not going to be able to get Van Fleet because we don't have no money to go get Van Fleet.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to address your point guard position in the draft. And do we really feel confident about Tommy doing that? No, we don't. So this offseason, I just find it very hard for this team to build up a competitive team when you're giving up at least 65 to 70% of your cap to 3 guys. I just don't see how you're going to do it. But I would not be surprised if Monte Morris is traded. But what kind of value is he going to bring back? He's basically, and realistically, he is a backup point guard on a functional franchise. He's not a starter.
Yeah, and
DeLone Wright, I don't really have a problem with him. He's good on defense. Offensively, he's kind of shaky. But DeLone Wright is really a backup point guard as well.
right.
So
They're both backup.
you're asking two backup point guards to give you starter roles. And these 2 guys are going to be on expiring contracts, by the way. So there's no guarantee that, these 2 guys are safe. I think DeLone Wright is more safer than Monte Morris, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, when you listen to, Toronto say that they're gonna make changes, I guess my question is, are they a trade partner? Like, I don't see Toronto being a trade partner with the Wizards. I don't think we have
No,
anything that they would want. But we got
no.
everything, but they got everything that we want.
Yeah, Toronto is definitely not a trade partner. The only player that, and somebody said this on Wizards Twitter, the only player that they think that we would try to get from Toronto would be Jakob Poeltl, because that's more like a Tommy Shepard type of move.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are kind of mixed when it comes down to Daniel Gafford because his new contract kicks in starting next season. So I don't know if some people are kind of like, hey, we might want to find somebody that's a little bit more durable than Daniel Gafford, because a lot of people like Jay Huff. And, I was kind of questionable about Jay Huff, but I didn't know too much about him. But in reality, man, the odds are against us because we're committed to 251. And if we're talking about giving KP probably $150 million extension, you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about giving Kuz probably maybe $140 million, maybe 135. I mean, I just don't see how you're going to be able to build the rest of the team when you forking out anywhere between 110 to 115 a season to three guys.
Yeah, yeah. This just looking at it, man. I mean, you're talking about doubling Kuzma's salary, right? I mean, you're pretty much going to be looking at going from 13 to 26 million a season, between 26 and 30 million a season.
Hmm.
Porzingis probably going to add on 10 more million to that.
Yep,
So you're looking at, roughly doing the math in my head. So let's just say 25, maybe $25 million a season additional, and then Bradley Bill's contract goes up next season.
about 3 million. Yeah,
I think it goes to 46, so that's about 28 million more. So and you talk about the salary cap in its totality. I think that only goes up like $5 or $6 million. So it's not like the Wizards is getting a huge you know uh I guess they're not going to get a lot of room, a lot of wiggle room to make these contracts work. And ultimately, yes, you got two expiring contracts next season with Monte and DeLon. Maybe you can move those contracts this offseason. But I'll be honest with you, my dude. I really don't see any trade partners that are willing to take on backup point guards like that. Unless I mean, because you gotta think about the value we get in return. Like, we're not trading. Monte Morris isn't a value starter. Like you said, he's a bench player. So I think other teams are looking at Monte Morris as such. So, you almost have to package him with somebody else just to get a starter.
and
Like
who do you think you? Not to cut you off. Who do you think we're going to have to package him with?
Denny.
There you go. There
Yeah.
you have it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to package him with
It's
Denny
going to probably get down to that.
or
It's probably going to get down to that.
yeah, you're gonna have to. Yeah, I guess you're right, man. Because let's say if Toronto is a suitable trade partner, right? We want Van Vliet. We're gonna have to throw Denny in that deal with Monte Morris and or Anthony Gill. Anthony Gill is definitely a package player. He's only on the books for about $2 million. So that makes the money would make sense for a team to take on three contracts in return for Fred Van Vliet. But is Fred Van Vliet? I don't remember, but is he a free agent
I
or,
don't know if
or
he,
is
I
he under
thought he.
contract?
I could have sworn he's under contract. I thought he just not too long ago signed a contract.
Let me get off of this because another preferred site.
Um, I would say that another player that the Wizards could possibly throw in the package. I think they won't throw in Anthony Gill. I think they would throw in somebody like Isaiah Todd though, based off of the comments that Wes Unseld made about him about a week ago.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's pretty much.
I think he's done. I don't think. I mean, Wes Unseld didn't seem to be impressed with him.
Yeah,
When he came out there the last game, he went like 1 for 12 from the field.
yeah. Okay, so Fred Van Vliet is under contract one
It's a
more
player
year.
option.
Yeah, and that's a player option.
That's why. So I guess people are expecting him to opt out of his deal. So he has a player option. Gary Trent Jr. has a player option, and Gary Trent Jr. Is he a one or is he a two?
He's a two.
Okay, but
He's like a
Fred Van
combo
Fleet
guard.
fits the timeline of what this franchise want. But you're gonna have to pay him. You can't pay him the Lone Wright or Monte Morris type money. Not for
Mhm.
Fred Van Fleet.
So check this out. So Monte Morris, he'll make about, because he's owed 18 million left. So when you combine his salary with Denny's, for example, Denny is about 11 million next season. Wait a minute. No, he's about, because he's owed 11 million.
Well,
So
then he got that. He still got that fifth year that could be like a qualifying offer.
right. So technically, because of the money, because of the fact that he's still within his rookie contract.
Exactly.
The money makes sense because you combine that with Monte Morris, so you're only looking about 15, 16 million. And then you go down here and you look at Isaiah Todd, for example, he's at 1.5, or Anthony Gill, who's at 1.8, right? And he's owed 3 million left. And if you go back to Fred VanVleet, you do the math, he's owed 21 million. I mean, you combine those contracts and you get Fred VanVleet here for almost the same amount of money.
Yeah, that's if Fred VanVleet, if he opts in on that on his next year's deal.
Right. But that's correct. That's what's important.
Yeah,
Um,
if he opts in. And I think if the Wizards trade for Fred VanVleet, the idea or the expectation is trying to extend his contract. But if you look at him, click on click on Fred VanVleet. If you click on it,
mm-hmm.
I'm gonna wait till you. Uh, Look how old he is.
Yeah.
29 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He fits that timeline, and he's undersized, so he's not that tall point guard that everybody wants.
Yeah.
But he fits that timeline. He fits
Yeah.
the because Bankroll is about to be 30.
Yeah.
Fred VanVleet is 29. KP and Kuz will be 28 when the season starts. He fits in that age group.
Yeah. I definitely could see it. I could definitely see it. That's interesting, man. And I
Look,
just happened, but that's why I asked the question if the Raptors were a trade partner. I don't know if they value or if they see anything in the guys who we're referring to or not. I don't think so.
nah, I don't. I
I don't
don't.
think that Denny fits what they're trying to do over there. I don't even think Monte Morris really makes sense for them either.
The
Uh,
only way he would make sense for them is if the Toronto Raptors decide to go through a full rebuild.
right.
Then yes, then they would fit that. But we don't know what direction the Toronto Raptors are going at this moment.
And then
So
what is Denny's market? What do you think? I mean, teams obviously don't view him the same way we view him. It kind of reminds me of Rui's situation where he gets traded somewhere else, and they'll probably relegate Denny to being a more of a sixth man or seventh man coming off the bench instead of him being a starter. What you think?
I agree. I don't think the rest of the league values Denny the way that we would.
Yeah,
Um, I don't even think we value Denny
yeah,
the way we do. I mean, because we didn't value Rui that way. So
right.
if you look at it, the way things is going with the young guys, once Denny is moved, the next person that's up is Kisper. Now, I do believe if Kisper improves, he's safe. I think he's probably going to be one of the safest players out of the young guys. But the next person, Johnny Davis, he got to come in. He got to start running. So for right now, the focus is going to be on Denny. But it's a possibility Denny could be moved this offseason. I don't think he will, but it's a possibility. It
Yeah,
all depends on what this team decides to do. They're all committed into the mid three, so if I think things will change depending on Kuzma. If Kuzma decides to go elsewhere, there's a market out there for him. If KP decides that he wants to go elsewhere, then this conversation will completely change
yeah,
because then you're going to have to start looking at bankroll. But let me ask you this, man. You've seen the comments by Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard is basically saying that, he really doesn't want to wait for guys that are 2 to 3 years away from actually doing something. And then he also said that there are needle movers that want to come to Portland. What you think about those comments, man? Do you believe him? Or do you think he's just blowing smoke up everybody's ass? What do you think?
yeah. I think he's blowing smoke. And the only reason why I say that is because Damian Lillard at this point has already kind of come out like Bradley Beal in a sense where he's basically saying it's not really about winning for me.
Yeah.
Um, Bradley Beal's come out and said it is, but he kind of showed his hand when he said that there was no other teams on the market, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it just, to me, it's all about, it's money talk.
Yeah.
it's money talk with these guys.
Right.
So no matter what, think about it. No matter what, it's regardless of what the team looks like, I get paid.
Yep.
Regardless of what we do at the end of the season, I get paid. And that
Right.
has been Damian Lillard's his motto in a sense. That has been Bradley Beal's motto in a sense. That's why these guys are basically put in the same box with each other because, you know, everyone looks at other players that like, hey, these guys wanted to win. Like Melo wanted to win. So he went to New York, when he could have stayed in Denver and got paid. Um, there's other players out there, but eventually some of these players that stay and they loyal, like Giannis, they win.
Yeah.
Put together a formidable squad and you win. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I give LeBron a hard time throughout his career, but LeBron wanted to win. So he
Yeah.
left Cleveland. The first time he left Cleveland, went to
He,
Miami, joined up with D Wade and Bosh, took less, right, to do that because at the time
mm-hmm.
the salary cap was only allowing guys to take 16 to 17 to 18 million dollars each, to make something like that happen to stay within the cap. And they just did it. That's what they did. That's what they did to win. I'm not seeing that from Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal.
Nope. I mean, you saw it with Kobe. He wanted to win.
Right.
He won. So even with KD wanted to win. He left. People just get mad and say, "Well, he went to join the enemy," but the man won.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
There's
but
proof of that.
it's proof. But let's put it this way: we can't say that Damian Lillard and Bankroll don't want to win because when they go to their bank account, they're winning.
Oh yeah,
Every
they
time that
winning in
check
life.
cashes, they winning.
Oh yeah,
Somebody
they cashing them checks.
they winning in life. So I mean, to them, they look at it like exactly. Somebody had posted up on Twitter that
Robbing the bank.
somebody somebody on Twitter posted that Bankroll gets paid $500,000 per game.
That's crazy.
So when this man didn't play, and mind you, ladies and gentlemen, and I tweeted this yesterday, Bankroll has played a total of 90 games in the past 2 seasons. That is a whole regular season and a playoff series.
That's crazy.
90 games. So when this man was sitting on the bench, that $500,000 was cash. It was cashing in his account.
Cha-chinging, man. Was
still cha-chinging. So he's loyal to the bag, man.
My man was on the bench, like counting it. He was just looking at it, like, "Yep, it's in there. Okay,
for real.
Good. Hold up,
for
let
real.
me check. Let me make sure. Okay, we're good."
Exactly. What was it? I think it was the Ragu commercial, the old slogan. It's in there. That's exactly how the way he was. He look at that. He'll get his phone. It's in there.
Right. So, Kjose, we got 5 minutes left. Real quick, Rui balled out game 1 of the playoffs today for the Lake Show, man, versus the Grizzlies. Were you surprised?
No. I'm happy for him. For all you Rui haters out there, where y'all at?
Man, they was on there, but they was switching up the tune.
I'm tired of everybody saying, "Man, come on, man, come on." You guys, some of you guys drove that dude to the airport, man. Yeah. Drove him there, and then you drove Kendrick Nunn over there to the Cap One Arena.
Yeah, they was happily bringing Kendrick Nunn stuff and moving Rui stuff out. So
for real.
I think it's funny though that they couldn't hate today. That's what they couldn't do. So now it's let's move the goalpost to game 2. If he plays great in game 2, let's move the goalpost to what he does in the entire series. That's how we're gonna grade it. Like Rui can't win with these guys, man. He can't, man.
No.
And at the end of the day, I'm just tired of the whole narrative that Rui isn't this type of player anyway. The numbers speak for itself, really, if you think about it. The man had 5 playoff appearances prior to today. He was shooting 60% from the field in those games, averaged about 14 and a half, 7 rebounds. That's productivity. All right. That's something that who we traded him for will never give us back in return. Kendrick Nunn's not going to even be a Wizard. We don't even know if he'll be here next year. Even if
No,
he
he's not
is,
gonna be here this
yeah,
year.
he won't be here. But I'm just saying, like, we know that the return, the second round picks, right? The three, we got the Bulls second round pick this summer. This guy's gonna be a project, whoever he is. And the two middle schoolers who you said earlier that they probably gonna be going to summer camp, and roasting marshmallows, and singing to each other and reading each other bedtime stories this summer. Those
Pretty much.
yeah, those draft picks are never going to give us what Rui gave the Lakers today in game one. So for people to be like, oh, you crowning them in game one, well, yeah, because who we traded him for, we're never ever going to see.
No.
So Rui's game one essentially for the Lakers is what we'll never see for his return.
Nope. Nope. And let's not forget, I mean, he led all scores for the Lakers with 29 points.
Crazy,
LeBron
crazy,
James only had 21. He
crazy
shot
game.
5 for 6 from 3-point range, 11 or 14 from the field. I mean,
Crazy, crazy.
crazy numbers.
I mean,
Crazy numbers.
for a bench player, my dude, come on, man. That's
Is I'm just saying. I mean, we stay stuck on stupid. That's all I can say, man. We're one of the dumbest franchises in the league, man. We stay stuck on stupid.
well, we try to tell people, but they don't want to listen. Like I saw some people today that said, we were told that he couldn't do this, and I'm like, you never heard that from me. You never heard that from DC Hoopla. This is what we see out of these players is what we try to tell people. Look, everyone doesn't like Dinwiddie, but Dinwiddie had a 30-point game 7 to take the Dallas Mavericks to the Western Conference Finals last year. Nobody wants to talk about that, but the Wizards don't see this. They don't get it. They
Oh,
don't.
they get it. They get it.
These type of players show up when the lights are the brightest. That's the point that I try to make to people. Like, the moves that we make are detrimental because we're trading away guys that just can't give us nothing in maybe 5 or 6 minute spans. But when the lights are the brightest, this is when these guys show up.
Right. One last thing, because I know we got
Yeah.
almost less than a minute. How is it? And I know people say, well, why he couldn't do that here? Why wasn't he able to do it? That says a lot. That says a lot that he goes out there, puts up 29 points, playing with Anthony Davis, playing with a LeBron James. And then you're wondering, well, why he can't do that playing here? Well, first of all, look who he's playing with.
Right.
Why should he listen to guys who ain't even on that level?
Right. So let's pick this up in the second part. That wraps up the first part of State of Wizards. Be sure to stay tuned for the second part. And once again, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to part 2 of State of the Wizards. I am your host, Kjose, and I'm right here with my main man, Dcan. So, Dcan, let's get started. Let's continue this conversation.
All right.
We were talking about Rui, and we were talking about how he did in the playoff game against the Grizzlies. He put up 29 in 30 minutes?
Yeah.
He shot 11 for 14 from the field, 5 from 6. But I'm seeing comments while, I was just going through Twitter and people saying, oh, well, he was inconsistent. He was ass when he was here. You can't read too much into this. What is it about Wizards Twitter when former players leave here and they actually look good in playoff games that we sit there and get all uptight and say, oh, well, why don't we just admit that they were just terrible when they played here? Why we're not talking about what they're doing elsewhere? Is it really the fact that they played terrible here, or maybe we just wasn't using them properly? What do you have to say to that?
Well, why would we be talking about Rui in any other light other than what he's done, in a positive way in a Wizards uniform? Why would we spend our time highlighting the fact that he lost his job, when he was still shooting a career high 3-point percentage?
Right.
Why would we talk about that? See, that's what they don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about when Rui was actually having career averages across the board a season ago. Yeah, he sat out, the first couple of months of the season, but when he came back and he was asked to come off the bench, he was shooting a career high 3-point percentage,
Right.
you can't get no better than 44, 45% from three, but let the narratives, let these guys spin it the way that they want to. And they're talking about his defense. They're talking about, at that point they're cherry picking other things because they can't criticize, this portion of his game. Well, he's not a true two-way player. So the Lakers are trying to make him into two-way, and that's where they're struggling, and they need to focus on this and they need to focus on that with Rui. Who are we to tell the Lakers what they need to focus on with Rui when we couldn't even get it right?
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So you guys pick and choose which part of his game you had a problem with. When in actuality, it really wasn't a problem with Rui's game. It was a problem with how we were playing Rui and what we were expecting out of Rui. Who did we want Rui to be for us? Rui was an instant spark off the bench. Second half of the season, after the trade, it showed just how much we were lacking in that department from the scoring aspect of it from the bench, because Rui's scoring wasn't there. You know what our record is this season without Rui, my dude? It's like 13 and 29 or something. You know what I'm saying? Our season, that was our season with him on the squad when he wasn't playing. We were losing games when he was not playing.
Right.
And when he was playing, we were winning games. Why? Because the bench scoring and the bench output was so much better when Rui was in the game.
Yeah.
You and I had covered, we did a State of the Wizards episode when Rui went out with that injury. And I asked you remember I asked you in that episode, how much will the Wizards bench get hit, or how much will they, will this hurt their bench with Rui being out? And I think your answer was it's going to hurt them tremendously.
Yeah.
And you were right. Their bench, when he went out, the difference in our scoring was so bad. It was so terrible. Like,
yeah,
you couldn't help but notice, man, we really missed this guy's scoring. We really missed his instant offense off the bench. And so sometimes this is another thing that I felt was unfair to Rui. Jamal Crawford's defense was terrible. He wasn't a great defender either.
No, he wasn't.
Mo Williams, who I'm naming off, you get where I'm going. These are six.
Yeah.
These are six.
Lou Williams was another one.
What I said Mo Williams. I meant Lou.
Yeah, you meant Lou Williams. Yeah, Lou Williams is one. Yeah, he was off the bench scorer as well. Yeah,
his defense wasn't that great either.
Right, it wasn't.
Right, so Rui's relegated into the 6-man role, and his only job for us was for him to be a spark.
Right.
But somehow people were saying, "Oh, well, we need him to do more." Well, you didn't ask that from Jamal Crawford. You didn't ask that from Lou Williams. These guys were instant offense off the bench too.
Yeah.
How is it that it's different for somebody like Rui, and it's not like that for other players who are instant offense off the bench? It's almost like we never saw Rui in that light. So
right.
They didn't want to believe that Rui was that type of player. And I think that's unfair to Rui.
Yeah, it is. And I think a lot of the reason why they put those expectations on Rui because he was a lottery pick, a ninth pick. But if memory serves correct, wasn't Jamal Crawford a lottery pick when he came into the league? If I'm correct, I believe he was a lottery pick too. It's just that him being a 6-man was just a role that was good for him. Mm-hmm. The thing is that Rui's defense was never bad. The year that Russ was here, Rui was one of our better defenders on the team. Yeah. His mid-range game has always been there. But I would say this, and I could be wrong, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. Last offseason, when we traded and got Will Barton. Wasn't the expectations that Will Barton was going to be our sixth man? Wasn't that the expectations?
Yeah, yeah. Will Barton was supposed to be like
So
one of the six
he was
men.
supposed to be our sixth man. So when they actually said, okay, Rui, you're going to be the sixth man, well, why do you think that is? Because the guy that they was expecting to be the sixth man and Will Barton was playing like garbage.
Yeah,
So then they said, okay, well, Rui, we need you to be that sixth man.
yeah.
And then it was kind of like Rui's looking at it like, well, that's not what my role was supposed to be originally.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, and I've always consistently said this, I believe promises was made by this organization, but because they chose to invest in bankroll, it changed the plans of what the future was going to be.
Well, let's go to that real quick. So I brought this up on Twitter the other day. Bradley Bill's podcast last season, not this past season, the season before, said that Kuzma was going to be a part of the plan in this building process for why he would stay. So
Right,
he said himself out of his own mouth, if I stay, who are we getting in return from LA?
right,
And he said he gave Tommy Shepard a chance.
right,
So I guess the three names that came off was KCP, Trez, and Kuz. And
right,
in his own words, he said, with Kuz, I like Kuz. This will give Kuz the opportunity to get from out the shadows. So that's a clear indication to me that when he said that, Kuz was not going to be in anybody's shadows here in DC.
right,
When they traded for Kuz, it was going to be that Kuz started day one.
right,
Okay, he was gonna compete, and he was 9 times out of 10 going to be a part of the plan alongside Bradley Beal. He was definitely a bargaining chip used to keep Bradley Beal here. Dinwiddie was supposed to be that bargaining chip. Obviously, it didn't work, but you get my point. The point is that it goes back to the 251. None of this, we wouldn't even be talking about any of this, trading Rui, getting rid of, him and Dinwiddie, and even acquiring Dinwiddie. We wouldn't be talking about none of this if it wasn't for the 251. Now the 251 actually happened after the Laker deal, but the point is that the Laker deal, the signing of Spencer Dinwiddie, the relegating of Rui, all of that happened because of the 251. All of it happened to get him to sign the 251. That's what people aren't factoring in. It's like, y'all don't understand. This is what he wanted to happen in order for him to sign on the dotted line and say he wanted to stay here and he wanted to be a part of the next 5-year process of the Washington Wizards. Rui was just a victim of another one of these circumstances in the build around Bill experiment.
yep,
Just like John Wall was, just like Russell Westbrook was, just like Spencer Dinwiddie was, Rui is now another one of the victims of the Bradley Beal experiment gone wrong.
I agree.
So now you have to keep, turning over a new chapter, a new page. Okay, so now your GM says this is an incomplete season. Again,
Yep,
Bradley Beal said the same thing last season. He said, the Spencer Dinwiddie thing was on me. It didn't work. This season was an incomplete season for me. And then Tommy Shepard goes on the record and says that this season, second year in a row, finishing 35 and 47, by the way, this was an incomplete season for him. So now you're going on another change and another flipping of the roster to see if it works around the 251. When do you stop? When does the the carousel stop for this team, my dude. I just don't know.
The only way it stops is when the $251 million player asks out, and that's that's the unfortunate thing. So you mentioned Dinwiddie's name quite a few times, so you know where I'm getting ready to lead to on this one. Dinwiddie and Kuzma had a back and forth on Twitter a few days ago. A lot of people said it was a mid off. Let's just call it what it is. You had two mid players going back and forth. Wizards Twitter, of course, was so happy when Kuzma went on that tirade talking about Dinwiddie calling him Den Shitty and saying all these things. What was your reaction throughout that whole beef?
I didn't even. I mean, my initial reaction was Dinwiddie saying this about Kuz was actually a response that he did not give immediately after that Dallas game,
right?
Where Kuz responded to him. So I felt like it was open season because he said something, then Kuz said something in response, and Dinwiddie never responded to it until they asked him. So for the people that are wondering why Dinwiddie keeps the Wizards' name in his mouth, the media folks keep asking him about the Wizards. Dinwiddie isn't raising his hand and say, hey, let's talk about the Wizards today. You know, they asked him that question. Now, when he answered, I don't remember exactly what he said verbatim, but I know that, you know, he, in so many words, was saying like, you know, hey, you know, Kuz. Matter of fact, let's pull that up. Let's pull it up because I definitely do want to look at what he said verbatim. Do you got it up by chance?
No, I kind of remember what he said though. So
yeah, I kind of wanted to see. I kind of wanted to revisit it. I should have pulled it up. But let's put it this way. He, he how he feels about it, you know, he's a former player, so he's speaking on what he knows.
Right.
And what his involvement was with the Wizards. Kuz's whole premise of this is that you were never a number two to be talking like this. You know, I think he says something. I think Dinwiddie says something in there like he compares himself to Drew Holiday. And then Wizards Twitter went crazy that he compared himself to Drew Holiday. You know, Dinwiddie is basically just telling people, I have value. You know?
Yeah.
You guys moved me for Porzingis. And then Dallas moved me for Kyrie and picks, of course. But you know, the point is I have value. So so no matter what we think about Dinwiddie, that's how he views himself. And why not? Because the Wizards paid Dinwiddie a nice chunk of change to come here and play alongside Bradley Beal as the number two. Not as the number three, not as the number four. He was as the number two when he signed here. Now, my theory is that Kuzma had a problem with Dinwiddie being the number two, and Kuzma's coming from LA on a brand new contract. He just got an extension with the Lakers, mind you. He's coming over here and he's trying to make a name for himself. He's looking at Dinwiddie like, bro, you're coming off an ACL injury. You know, you're not that guy. I'm coming off of a championship. You know, I'm worth more on this team than you'll ever be. That's kind of how I'm looking at it from Kuzma's perspective, because Kuzma's a champion. Now, now Dinwiddie, in so many words, from that interview, he's basically saying like, look, hey, those guys don't play winning basketball over there. You know, and those guys they're just trying to get paid. Kuzma's just there to get paid. Now, here's my thing. He's right in a sense because Kuzma's up for a contract extension. All right. And we know that he's going to get the bag. Now, Kuzma's response to him was, I'm going to get a bag. Right? So he acknowledged that he's going to get paid. In the midst of all of this, you're having to prove that you're number one, you're a champion, but you're on a losing team that did not make the playoffs.
Right.
So so is Dinwiddie right? Because we're not playing winning basketball right now. And you know you're about to get paid. So Dinwiddie's right in the sense that we don't play winning basketball and you're playing for the bag. So if you sign that contract extension, you prove him right because you're not here for winning basketball. You're signing a contract extension with a losing team. All right. That's the first thing. The second thing is if you don't sign that contract, Dinwiddie's right because you're admitting that you're not staying because we play what?
Losing basketball.
Losing basketball. There you have it. So that's all I have to say about that. I didn't really, yes, it was a mid off, but Dinwiddie had every right to respond because Kuz said something last. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it, Dinwiddie eventually turned around and he brought up Rick Fox's name because he said, nobody's sitting there saying that Rick Fox is this great player, blah, 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 blah. And I knew where he was going with that. But how I look at it is what Spencer Dinwiddie did, it was a chess move because now you put that pressure on Kuz. It's kind of a double-edged sword for you right now. You just spoke on it. If you sign the contract, then you prove his point that, hey, you just want to get paid. But if you don't sign the contract, then you're also proving his point of they don't play winning basketball. So it was a chess move.
So he's in a lose-lose situation. He's not going
He's in a lose-lose situation.
What are you going to win that argument?
You're not going to win that argument because you're going to prove him right one way or the other.
Either way.
So it definitely was it was a chess move. So let's talk about the draft because I already said what I had to say about the draft. I mean, I think it's kind of pointless to talk about it because we already, yeah, exactly. Look at you yawning just by even talking about the draft. It got you tired. Just tell me, what do you think this team should do this upcoming draft? Like, I know we've kind of been staying away from that conversation. I let Wizards Twitter go back and forth talking about who we should draft and who we shouldn't. But what do you think? What players, what prospects do you see in this draft that you would like to see on the Wizards? And why?
Amen Thompson obviously is one.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Cam Whitmore. I like Cam Whitmore's game. And the other Thompson brother I like as well. Is his name is it Asur Thompson?
I think it's Asur.
Asur, yeah, Asur. I like his game. Obviously, the other guys are no brainers at the top. And here's my thing, right? Because I like Scoot, obviously, Victor, but we know where the Wizards are going to fall. They're probably going to fall between 8 and 10. And I'm seeing Ant Black come up, and I like Ant Black, but the thing is that I already know whoever I say I like on this episode, my dude, the Wizards are not going to draft.
Right.
I already know that. They do the opposite of what I think they should do. But I'm going to say it right now that I believe they should go out and draft Cam Whitmore, who I think is a potential two-way player who can do it on both sides of the basketball. I think that every one of these players have a learning curve. It doesn't matter how athletic. It doesn't matter how athletic they're going to be. When they come to the Wizards, the learning curve with the Wizards is you have to fit into Wes Unseld Jr.'s system. All right. Here's my issue with Ant Black. because I like Ant Black, and I'm not going to say that I don't think we should draft him because I think if it's not Cam, I think then you should look at Ant Black. Ant Black should, if you're falling within that 6 to 10 range, then Ant Black should be your choice, in my opinion, after Cam. But here's what I will say about Ant Black's game. In this system, you need to be able to prove that you can hit the shot. If you don't have the shot, then we don't need you, bro.
I agree.
Everything else, like I get it. Like we need a guard that can collapse the defense, kick it out, and get guys open looks. You know, we think about the John Wall days and how he pushed tempo. Ant Black tends to do the exact same thing. But it goes back to a conversation that Locked On had with Chris Miller about him being spoiled, about having athletic guards, John Wall, Russell Westbrook, right? I think you even touched on it offline. We're spoiled. So think about the shoes that Ant Black has to fill from an expectation standpoint. If he's not coming in here doing what those guys did day one, is it unfair? Sure, but we're literally going to say to ourselves, okay, Ant Black is the future. Well, can we pair him up with Johnny Davis in the future if Bradley Beal asks out? Can Ant Black play with Bradley Beal today? Is he the type of player that's going to be able to coexist with a Bradley Beal when we know that Bradley Beal has played with a 5-time All-Star in John Wall, a Hall of Fame player in Russell Westbrook? Like, how does that dynamic look? I just don't. You talking about a 30-year-old player and a what 18, 19-year-old player playing alongside each other. There's going to be a lot of learning curves for somebody like Ant Black, and I just don't think that people are factoring in that makes a big difference for a win now team, because we're not looking for this guy to have a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
We're looking for him to come in and provide day one, productivity. And it's unfair to somebody like Johnny Davis even, but he's a prime example of being a lottery pick who was so wet behind the ears in the Wes Unseld Jr. system and the Wizards system that, man, the kid was really struggling to score 4 points for us, man, after we drafted him
Yeah.
at 10 last. Come on, man. Come on. So imagine that. Imagine that for an Ant Black this upcoming season. It's going to hurt a lot of people's feelings. And I personally don't want to see that again. I just don't want to see it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to see it either. I think the reason why a lot of people are high on Ant Black, high on guys like Case and Wallace, because they know that they can't shoot, but they're looking at them to be able to push the pace, run the offense. But to your point, you're talking about, I think Ant Black is 19 or 20. You're asking a 19 or 20-year-old to push the pace for guys who are 28 and above. And that's unfair to expect
Unfair.
a young guy to come in and do that. So if you draft an Ant Black, and I think somebody said this, you draft an Ant Black when you're building for the future, when you're throwing out there Johnny Davis, when you're throwing out there Isaiah Todd, he's growing with those players. You don't bring an Ant Black here and tell him we need you to run with Porzingis,
Right.
Bankroll,
Right.
Kate,
Right.
Kuz, with a
Right.
veteran. You just don't do that.
Right. Because
So,
the timeline doesn't match.
and it's always been that issue. The timeline has it. That's the reason why Rui's not here, because the timeline didn't match. That's
Right.
possibly the reason why Denny's not going to be here, because the timeline doesn't match.
Right.
So if the idea is to get a point guard, because you said, you need a point guard that makes sense with Bankroll, we shouldn't even be having that conversation. Why are we even talking about it? So if that's the case, it goes back to what we said in part one when you talk about that's when you pair him with somebody like a Fred Van Fleet. I see people sitting there saying D'Lo. You put him alongside with a guy like a Mike Conley Jr., somebody of that age, of advanced age, but you don't bring in a young prospect and tell him, here you go, go out there and run with these guys. That's not going to work. I just think that's just a bad idea. I'm expecting this franchise, they probably will draft Anthony Black. They probably would. And then people who are advocating for him on Wizards Twitter are going to get to complaining about what he's not doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like you should have expected him not to be able to do that when you're asking him to run out there with guys who are seasoned.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I just feel like if you're going to bring a young first of all, let me ask you this question: from 6 on down, do you see any players that could potentially be a franchise player? Because to be honest with you, that's what we should be looking at. And I feel, in my opinion, that's the reason why we kept KP playing as many games he was playing when we shouldn't have, because the Wizards wanted to make sure that they wouldn't secure them. Let's make sure we're not capable of being in the top 5 in the draft. Because I think there's at least a good 4 players that could be franchise players. And I think the Wizards just didn't want that. If they won the number 1 pick, that would probably be the worst thing that Tommy would have to deal with, because it's a no-brainer. You better draft Victor Wembanyama. He's going to be a franchise player automatically. So I just feel, in my opinion, they didn't want to be in that 1 through 5. Now, not unless we luck up and get in there. But just to ask the question again, do you see anybody that could potentially be a franchise player if we're picking 7?
7th or 8th or 9th or 10th or 6
Yeah,
to 10, basically.
like six and down.
All right.
6 and down. Do you see anybody that could be? Because really, that's what this franchise truly, truly needs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So,
Because it could be a bunch of role players in there.
yeah. So this is USA Today, and this came out 2 days ago. Obviously,
Wow.
I don't really
They got
look.
a Seward Thompson going number 8 to the Pacers. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
they got a Soar going outside the 5, and they got Jarris Walker going 5, and then they got Grady Dick going 6, and then they got Cam Whitmore going 7, and they got Soar going 8, and then Ant Black going 9, and then who they have 10? Taylor Hendricks. So here, to answer your question, the answer to that, do I see a franchise changing player? I would say yes. However, there's an asterisk next to that. That's only if you decide you blow this thing up now, and you allow that player, whoever you draft 60, like if there's a team out there that's looking for best player available, I think there's at least one player in this 6 through 10 that's best player available. And I think that player is a sewer right here.
I agree. I
I think I think
1000% agree.
I think the next player is Cam Whitmore.
Okay.
I think this is the wing. This is the wing, in my opinion, right here. And look and that's funny that the Wizards got, because that's exactly who I would get at 7. Now, granted, if Asur's there, I would pick Asur over Cam.
Absolutely.
I would definitely pick Asur over Cam, but I would definitely pick Cam right there at 7, because he is definitely in my opinion, the best player available at that spot. For Villanova, he did it on both sides of the basketball. When we talk about a player for the Wizards, and you're talking about the system that we run right now, this guy's 6'7", 230, my dude, perfect size. He can guard at any, he could probably guard 1 through 4 with no problem. He is the wing that you need, and he's the best player available, and he's young. That's the guy that I personally would pick. I love this that they have him at 7. But if this guy right here is available, that's a no-brainer to me. That's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
That's a no-brainer because of his athleticism, and he's a guard.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guard, in my opinion, that just changes the dynamics of your franchise. So to me, if a Sour's drafted at 7 by the Washington Wizards, you can tell Bradley Beal, okay, it might be that time to pack up, bro.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at it with Asur, because I've kept my eye on him as well. One of the things is, the Thompson twins, they have elite athleticism. That's what this team, elite athleticism. That's what they need. With Asur, they said he may be the better brother out of the Thompson twins.
Mm.
So if he's there,
are they saying
if he's there,
Are they saying he's a
You
better
need to
shooter?
grab.
Are they saying he's a better shooter,
They
better
say he might
defender?
be they say he might be the better brother out of the Thompson twins. Like remember when they talked about the Ball brothers, and I remember I think it was LeVar Ball said that LaMelo would probably be the better one out of the Ball brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, it's looking that way because we don't know what the deal is with Lonzo
Mm-hmm.
and LiAngelo can't even get into the league.
Right.
But when it comes down to the Asur, when it comes to Amen, he can. I've seen his highlights. Our man can drive to the basket. He's a 2/1. But they said Asur is better on defense than his
Mm-hmm.
brother. They say he's a little bit raw, but they say he could potentially be the better Thompson twin because
Mm-hmm.
everybody's high on his brother. So if he's there, they should definitely snatch him up. Here's another thing I think the Wizards should do, but I know they're not going to do. They should definitely try to get another first round pick because the Wizards got a lot of holes they need to fill.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think if you can get your wing, you can possibly get another wing later on in the draft. Um, Further down the line, I know a lot of people have talked about what's his name, Leonard Miller. You can find a, but see, again, it goes back to what we talk about. When you bring these young guys in here and they have flaws in their game, they got to have the bandwidth to improve. And because this organization has committed to the win now, these guys are going to probably just build themselves up enough just to become trade pieces maybe 3 to 4 seasons down the road. And that's what I don't want.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously. I, I mean, I'm just looking at this draft, and I'm looking at who can you draft that you're willing to give a contract, a rookie contract extension to. That's where I'm at now, my dude.
Yeah.
Who are we draft? I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want a project. I don't want a player that's going to spend half the season in the G League. One thing that I didn't like, what I read under Cam Whitmore, was at the end they said that he could spend some time in the G League next season and get
And I,
consistent minutes. Why the hell? Why the hell would we want that?
but you know what, man? I've heard people say that about Cam Whitmore. Some people have said that, he wasn't, they didn't believe he was the right fit for this team. So it's gonna always be that. And the unfortunate thing is it's the timeline, man. That's the problem. It's the timeline. For real, for real. We should be drafting guys like this and letting them develop. Look at OKC, man. A lot of those guys, they needed time to
Mm-hmm.
improve. Like, unfortunately, a lot of them weren't like Jalen Williams, who came out balling, but they needed time. Josh Giddey needed time.
Yeah,
Dort needed time.
yeah,
Chet probably is going to need some time. So that's what this team. So I would be all in on Ant Black if we were going to give him the bandwidth to improve. But
yeah.
if we're bringing him here just to, hey, look, we just need you to just run the offense. Just run the offense. Don't worry about shooting. Just run the offense. Like when you look at those numbers, and I don't want to
He definitely looks
put him
like
in
a
that
Wizards
category.
player, though. He looks like a Wizards player, man.
Man, he definitely looks like a Wizards player. But when I look at his numbers, man, I mean, and I want to give him the opportunity, but his numbers looks exactly like the player that Wizards Twitter can't stand, Spencer Dinwiddie.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah.
if he turns out to be another Spencer Dinwiddie? Then what?
I mean, his size, first of all, stands out. 6'7" guard is very impressive. He's young. He's probably gonna be able to, do a lot of great things in the league, as far as being able to distribute the basketball, and he'll probably be like that Jason Kidd-esque type player for teams where he's really not known for a shot early on, but he's gonna, have a high assist ratio. Um, you look, I'm not mad at the pick. I just think that, if we up at 7 or 6, you don't use that pick to get Ant Black. That's just where I'm at.
No, you
You
don't.
don't
You
use
don't.
6 or 7 to draft Ant Black. You use maybe 10, 9, 10, to draft him if you fall there. Because all those other players that we named, the Thompson twins, they're gonna be gone. Jarris Walker's gonna be gone. Cam Whitmore is gonna be gone. I mean, all those players are gonna be gone. You're gonna be left with Ant Black anyway. So that's probably who we might end up drafting if we fall 9 or 10. And that's just by default. And look how that worked out for us last season when Johnny Davis fell to us at 10. You see, we didn't draft the best player available. We just drafted the projected 10th pick. That's all we did when it came down to Johnny Davis because he was slated to go no later than 10. You
Some
know,
mock drafts had him going. Some mock drafts I've seen had him going later than that. The real reason why we drafted Johnny Davis because he knew how to drop a play. Let's call
that
it
was
what it
it.
is.
That
That's
was
all.
it.
That
But
was it.
that
I
was
mean,
that was bogus in itself, my dude. That was
yeah, he
crazy.
wasn't supposed to be drafted that high. Just like when we drafted Troy Brown Jr., he wasn't supposed to be drafted that high either. So if I'm gonna just look at it this way, if we're sitting at number 5, if a Thompson twin is there, draft him. Draft one. I think the Thompson twins, I think I heard that they used to play volleyball. So they're gifted athletically. I mean, you got to draft one of those guys. If we're in the top 4, if our man is there, grab him. Don't think twice, grab him. If the Wizards win the number 1 pick, you draft Victor Wembanyama. I
Yeah.
don't give a damn if his lower body it is. I mean, come on, Porzingis gets bodied up by Van Fleet. He can't even shoot over that guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'm not worried about those things. If
Yeah.
Scoot, get him. I don't care, man. Just the thing is with this organization, they need to face reality. And reality is you got to start thinking about your future. And right now, going with this win now, how much more sample size do you need to see that this doesn't work?
It's yeah. I mean, I guess they need as many samples as they can get, but we
But if
we
you want the samples, bro, go to damn Costco. They got plenty of it for you.
exactly. Put on a Costco shirt. Shit. You ain't
I
got
had some earlier.
I mean,
So I don't know, man. You got anything else, man? You got any final words, man, before we conclude?
nah, man. I mean, other than, make sure y'all check out the store, man. Like we're getting ready to switch over to collection. Uh be sure to, like, share, and subscribe on the video, drop us some comments, show State of the Wizards some love, man. We ain't going nowhere. So I mean, I don't know why y'all not, showing some love, but at the end of the day, we here. We here for y'all. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Drop us some comments and check us out on the store. And that's all I got. Make sure you hit the follow button on DC Hoopla and Wiz Takes, Wizards Mafia.
All right. Well, that will conclude this episode. Follow us on Twitter, IG. You guys have a good one.
Good night. Peace.